let's take a look forward, Scott, and let's look at the top 5 storylines that we want folks to pay attention to watch this offseason. We're not going to break down all of these in full because guess what, folks? The season's over. This podcast doesn't go anywhere. We're going to be still giving you guys a ton of content. So we don't have all the answers to the test right now, but this is, again, just a little bit of an off-season preview here. So again, got 5 storylines. The first one, and the one I want to spend the most time on, is, of course, the quarterback carousel. I've been making this point a lot, Scott, that I can look across the league right now and see 10 teams where I'm not sure who the week 1 starter will be. I see several obvious openings, which to me is Dolphins, Jets, Steelers, Browns, Raiders. Of course, they have the number 1 pick, and the Arizona Cardinals. I think all of those teams will be looking for a new starting quarterback in some form or fashion who is not currently, or we don't expect to be, on the roster next year. I also see injured starters, 3 teams there. The Colts, although we assume Daniel Jones will be back. Not sure if he's starting week 1, though. I'm assuming the Falcons are starting Michael Penix, but again, I'm not sure if it's week 1. Kirk Cousins is likely to be released here in the next few weeks. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, they have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying there's quarterback competition, but again, suffered a torn ACL late in the season. Is he going to be available in week 1? And then there's the Minnesota Vikings, who I think will be bringing in some level of competition for J.J. McCarthy. So maybe for all of those teams, the quarterback is on the roster. For some of them, I don't think there is. But let me tell you what, Scott, there's not 10 starting quarterbacks available this offseason. This is generally assumed to be a 1 quarterback draft class, much like it was last year. Las Vegas Raiders will be taking Fernando Mendoza first overall, so you can lock that one in there. But for these other 9 teams, I mean, the available free agent quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, who likely is returning to Indianapolis, Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is going to come back to Pittsburgh now that his former friend Mike McCarthy is the head coach. Then it's Malik Willis, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, Jimmy Garoppolo, Case Keenum. Stop me when you're excited. Okay, so it's just like there's going to be some teams on this list here that have to do some creative solutions. Are you talking Derek Carr out of retirement? Are you running Kirk Cousins out next year if he gets cut? Again, very fascinating offseason to consider for some of these teams that are looking for quarterbacks to start week 1 and throughout the course of next season. There's going to be some creative solutions and pitches we're going to get from these teams this offseason.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people have to be killing themselves for maybe not going harder after Darnold, right? Because we weren't sure how to process the way his season ended with Minnesota because he played so poorly in those final 2 games. And he looks like Joe Montana compared to the names you just mentioned. I don't want to see Derek Carr play again. I don't want to see Kirk Cousins play again. Can you talk yourself into Marcus Mariota? And a lot of these offenses, these quarterbacks, it's hard to talk sometimes these quarterbacks into these teams, right? Do you want to quarterback the Jets? Do you want to quarterback what's left of the Dolphins? Do you want to quarterback the Cleveland Browns? A lot of these teams, new coaches, new coordinators. We'll see how those things develop. The most fascinating team of all of these, by far to me, is the Vikings because we love O'Connell. We love the talent here. McCarthy was a first-round pick, but he didn't throw the ball a lot at Michigan. He played on a run-first team. Athletic kid. He was a well-touted prospect out of high school and all that stuff, but he's mostly been bad as a starter, although he did play a little bit better down the stretch. The Vikings won a bunch of their games late. A lot of that was the defense and Brian Flores, and it's really key for them to keep Brian Flores. I was excited to see that. Nothing against Flores if he wanted a head coaching job, but it's just fun to watch him scheme up a defense, and he'll be doing it again next year. But the Vikings are the X factor. We got to figure out what to do with Justin Jefferson. We got to figure out what to do with that team. And that's a team where I think all 4 of the teams in that division can tell, and every division's not like this. Like the Raiders aren't going to win the AFC West next year. But every team in the NFC South can say, yeah, we could be the 12-5, 13-4 team next year. We just need a couple of things to go right. So the Vikings will be a team is Aaron Jones going to get cut? That's something they have to figure out. What's left with TJ Hawkinson? How good can Jordan Addison be? And again, it all comes back to O'Connell. He's one of the 3, 4, 5 right answers when it comes to offensive design. I realize I didn't save them this year, and he deserves some culpability. I don't want to completely absolve him of that, but they're to me a fascinating team because I see so much ceiling with that team if they get the quarterback room figured out.
Totally. And, NFC North's tougher than ever now for the Vikings. That's another thing too. I think they would make sense as a Marcus Mariota team. Again, if they still have faith in JJ McCarthy, because I think you can credibly all right, it didn't work out. Like in training camp, Marcus Mariota just outright beat out, JJ McCarthy. Again, that doesn't get you super excited, but it probably gets you through a season. And it just comes down to what's the level of faith in McCarthy at this point. There's already been, since they fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, sort of a spin job coming out of there. But hey, O'Connell actually was skeptical all throughout the offseason about starting, JJ McCarthy. Do they flirt with Aaron Rodgers again? They obviously were flirting with him last year. If he's going to come back, do they try to entice him to Minnesota and away from Pittsburgh? I think maybe we'll see. Again, they flirted with it last year. Do they bring Kirk Cousins back? Because he's got familiarity there, and he's again going to be expected to be released. Well, I'm just saying, this is what it is, Scott. You're gonna have to sell fan bases on some of these. Again, I will call them creative solutions here for teams. You look at Cleveland, maybe they can credibly say like, hey, it's Shador and like a veteran. I think possibly, but then there's talk about, hey, are they going to give Deshaun Watson another role? Which nobody wants to see that, but it's potentially a thing that is going to happen because his albatross contract is on the roster. Two of these teams, by the way, in the obvious opening section, have big time, quarterback extensions on the books here in Miami with Tua and Arizona with Kyler, but we don't expect either of them to be starting for these teams. Could they be a solution for one of the other teams? I have a tough time figuring out where Kyler Murray fits. I definitely have a tough time figuring out where Tua fits at this point. So that's another kind of difficult variable in this whole discussion.
And never overlook the offensive vanity of the best designers in the game, right? They may look at a Kyler Murray or a Tua and say, well, in my scheme, I could fix him. In my scheme, I could iron out what he doesn't do well. I could put him in a position to succeed. And we've seen, Jay Cutler get passed around the league that way. Well, if he played for my offense, he'd be great. If Jake Plummer played for my offense, he'd be great. If Jake Delhomme played for my offense, he'd be great. Vinny Testaverde, whoever it is. So those guys will get a chance to start. And at least, look, Kyler was a Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 overall pick. He's had moments in the league. The problem is he's just always going to be on the shorter side. He's not getting any bigger. Isn't kind of ironic that Seattle's charge of the Super Bowl really started when they signed off on Russell Wilson, when they decided he wasn't the right answer, and he's since gone to a bunch of teams and had middling success, and his career is probably just about over now. But man, we need more quarterbacks. That's the bottom line. Mendoza is starting to look like Peyton Manning to me compared to the rest of the quarterbacks in this class. I know next year's class is supposed to be interesting, and that's what probably a lot of franchises. I know the NFL is an immediate league. You get to do it now. We get to fix it now. Nobody gets 5 or 10 years to fix anything anymore. But some of these teams, the best advice, and I know it's not satisfying, might be, well, just get through this year, and then next season, hopefully you'll be in pole position to get one of 3, 4, 5 good quarterbacks. Next year will be a year where I think there'll be multiple quarterbacks in the first round.
Yeah, I think that's what teams are selling themselves here too. Can we just get by this year and then swing on our guy next year? We're always in a shortage of quarterbacks. We're not usually in a shortage of the next position here for storyline number 2. There are a lot of big names available at running backs. I'm just going to list them off here, Scott, and maybe you give me one that really lights your fire here. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, J.K. Dobbins, Tyler Algier, Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad White. Obviously, that goes all the way from guys I think that could start next year to interesting role players who will fit into fantasy somehow. So whether it's one of those guys, one of the big names, just give me like 1 or 2 here that you find really interesting that you're going to be keeping track of this offseason.
I still think there's a ceiling with Breece Hall. I still think he can be a 3-down back, and a lot of his failure with the Jets was a major, physical injury, and then just the team, the buoyancy of the offense, just suffocating everything in it. I think a lot of people wanted to see maybe him get traded in season. The Chiefs looked like a team that might have made sense. Who knows if they can make that work after the season. But Hall jumps out to me. I really think J.K. Dobbins is a good fit for Denver to come back. They obviously, even when Dobbins got hurt, they didn't steer into Harvey as much as we would have liked. But Dobbins is somebody they trust and pass blocker, and see if he can stay healthy for a full season. He's always going to need somebody to stay with him. I wonder if Etienne, his emergence would, a lot of times when you have a season like that, you just go out and it's your last chance at a huge contract, get everything you can. And look, NFL careers are so short. Your season, your life can end on any snap. So I don't blame anybody for going out and just getting the most they can, because it's maybe your one last chance to do it. And you should. You deserve it. But I wonder if staying with Cohen, staying with a winning program, staying with a team that prioritizes you might be worth maybe leaving a few bucks on the table. It's up for him to decide. I did not have ETN ranked anywhere near as proactively or as optimistically as I should have in the summer. It's one of the things I got wrong. But I think Hall is going to get the biggest contract of all these guys, and I think he's probably going to go to a winning team.
I like those notes. I also think Tyler Algier is like a really interesting sleeper name if he lands in the right spot. I think he's a good
football player, man. System. Good
football player, no question. My only pushback on Breece Hall is that a lot of what I said about Kenneth Walker were, hey, the Seahawks are 6th in effective cap space this year according to Over the Cap. You know who's 5th? New York Jets. Why wouldn't they just slap the franchise tag on Breece Hall even if they know he doesn't want to be there? So that would be my only potential drawback on Breece Hall landing in the open market. But I do think if he does get free, a lot of interesting teams he could potentially go to. My third storyline here is trade/cut candidates at wide receiver, because the free agent class, it's solid. You know, we can go ahead and say George Pickens expected to get the franchise tag. He's not going to be there. Maybe I guarantee you we're going to get some like annoying trade rumors and, is Pickens going to be on the, and then he'll be signed like 2 weeks or 2 days before the season starts by Dallas. But he'll be franchise tagged. And then when you look at the rest of the free agent market, it's an interesting group for sick freaks like me. But is Mike Evans really going to be available? Then it's like Wan'Dale Robinson, Juwan Jennings, Alec Pierce, Rashid Shaheed, Romeo Doubs. Again, interesting players, but no big marquee names. The big names could be potential trade cut candidates. I've got Brian Thomas Jr., A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore. I'm curious if you have any mystery names there, Scott. But for me, Brian Thomas is the one I think is most likely back with his team. A.J. Brown, probably I'd say 50-50, maybe leaning more stay, maybe 60-40 he stays. Ayuk, Moore, Ridley, Hill, I think all those guys will be cut or traded by their current teams.
Hill and Ridley, the cheese has started to go bad with Hill. The cheese is 100% bad on Ridley. I wouldn't want to dance with those guys. Ayuk's interesting because he was a dominant player not that long ago. He's got some quirks. We know this is the personality position, right? Yeah. This is a diva position. You have to go out there and believe in yourself and be willing to, get your head chopped off on any play. You have to have a certain chutzpah and just self-confidence to play receiver at all. You can't, when people criticize the receivers for how they're wired, if they weren't wired like that, they couldn't succeed at this position. I think it's just part of what makes you great. So I don't know if the team has the right psychological approach for Ayuk. He's still young enough that he'd be interesting. I also think the Colts are crazy if they let Alec Pierce go. He'd certainly be somebody, if I were the Patriots, I would certainly have a workout, a phone call, a steak dinner, whatever it is to get to know him. He's a deep threat. He's a guy who you're going to give 6 to 8 targets a week. He's not necessarily somebody who runs the entire route tree, but he's a field tilter. He's a defense adjuster. I would love to see him go to a team like New England. And actually, if he stays with the Colts, that's fine too. I mean, they were such a fun team until Daniel Jones got hurt. I hope that doesn't get lost in the season because it feels like Jones hasn't played in like 3 years. NFL seasons age like dog years. But I wish this list were a little bit more interesting. I felt like there was more going on at running back, but we know how important receiver is in the league. And maybe when you add that impact receiver, it gives us more reason to elevate our opinion of an offense. So again, though, there's always going to be some surprise guys who are available or guys who are cut or things that we don't see coming. I want to see where Pierce lands. I think he stays in Indianapolis, but I would love to see him on another number of teams. I think the Chiefs could really use a player like Pierce. They probably can't make it work. They'll probably talk themselves into their remaining talent anyway. Even somebody like Tyquan Thornton, who made a lot of splash plays for the Chiefs last year, is he like a poor man's, the Diet Coke version of Pierce, if you will? I think he might get a decent contract. I was sorry when the Patriots let him go. They never really developed him that well, but he's a player I think would be interesting. I'm fascinated. Do you see a fit for Ayuk? Do you see a team like, I'd like to see him there? Like, would he go to Minnesota? Would he go to the Chargers? I don't know. What team for Ayuk?
I'll say this, Scott. Jaden Daniels sat down with our own Nate Tice. The interview, I think I've retweeted it, and he basically said, hey, like I'm talking to some guys maybe to be here on offense. Maybe somebody played at Arizona State. He basically, and then kind of tried to walk it back a little bit. So yeah, I would say that Commander's landing spot is still the favorite there. There's obviously connections to that San Francisco front office as well. My last two storylines here, and again, we'll just Just going to throw these out there.
Somebody who played at Arizona State, he wants N'Keal Harry to come to the Washington.
Yeah, he wants N'Keal Harry to come to Washington. I can't even think of any other Arizona State receivers off the top of my head to make any jokes.
Reggie Jackson was a linebacker.
But oh, well, there you go. Okay, our last two storylines, again, we're not going to break these down because we got to get out of here, but we have a ton of coverage coming up on both these subjects. Number 4, mixed reviews of the draft class overall, but I think we're going to see multiple fantasy options go in the top 10, including Mendoza at quarterback, Jeremiah Love at running back could be a top 10 pick, and possibly 2 to 3 wide receivers. And then 5th storyline, tons of coaching turnover, obviously, to break down this offseason, which is great, Scott, because this show is going to be back, not this our next episode, but the next week, we're going to have a full loaded coaching show coming up. 2-parter, actually, because there's been so much coaching change. So, Scott, we're going to have a busy offseason, and I hope you're ready for a ton of coverage here. Draft, free agency, the whole deal. I'm very excited to be breaking things down. And I'm glad you joined me for this episode here to put a bow on the Super Bowl and the 2025 regular season, Scott. It was great. It's always fun. And this was yet another great year for the podcast and working with you as always, my friend.